Coming up on Tech News Today, Bing and Facebook team up to beat up on Google. Then Google and Mozilla team up to beat up on Microsoft. And Harry Potter and Amazon team up to lend you books. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, May 10th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use offer code TNT5. And they now offer free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm OMG Chad.
And filling in for Ayaz Akhtar, who is on secret assignment, Mr. Jonathan Strickland from HowStuffWorks.com.
I'm cranky and I hate everything.
I know,
That
but
is good.
we really need you to fill in for Ayaz.
You know, I missed Ayaz until right now.
Now it's like he's not.
Now it's like we're a
Ayaz
family
isn't
again.
that cranky.
No,
is
we're
he?
only saying that because we love him. and
It's
we
like
miss him.
Bob Hope's nose. It really wasn't that long, but became a thing, and everybody talked about how long Bob Hope's nose is. That's a reference
That's
no one
before
gets.
my
is it?
time.
Yeah.
I think.
I would also like to say, Tom, I really liked how you kind of introduced me yesterday as Jonathan Strickland beat Discovery employee.
I was trying to think of some funny Revision 3 getting bought by Discovery, like new coworker of Veronica
He
Belmont.
went down a rat hole in his
Nothing came. Nothing came.
nothing
So
happened.
I was just like, that's all that came out. But you are. I mean, it wasn't a lie, right?
That's true. No, it is completely true.
Tech Stuff Podcast. Go check that out. And we got lots of good news to talk about today, starting with Bing deepening their integration with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Foursquare, all kinds of stuff. They had an announcement kind of event today. Adam Sohn, general manager of Bing, said, "This notion of a query and web results can become a conversation with your friends." I don't know if that's how he talks, but that's what he said. So they announced 3 new columns that'll be rolling out slowly to Bing. One is Bing Knows, or Search Knows, and that's just your normal search results that
As
you're
in
used to seeing.
KNOWS, not like Bob Hope.
Correct. So you do get the Bob Hope references.
I just know that nose is spelled 2 different ways.
Okay.
So.
The second column is called Bing Knows. That's actually the last one that'll roll out, and it will have sort of apps and information, so maps and the ability to see how many stars in a review, that sort of stuff, in contextual information. And then the big one is called Friends Know, and they have created technology to index data from Facebook and several other social sites, map it to individual users' search queries, and then provide you related posts from your friends on Facebook. So, for instance, if you're logged into Facebook and Microsoft Live, both, which is kind of weird, but bear with us, and you searched for Seattle restaurants, is the example they use because they're in Seattle, it will populate the top section of the column under the heading Friends Who Might Know with any of your friends who are in Seattle. At the top of that list will be those who have liked particular restaurants in Seattle on Facebook. And then there will be below that a People Who Know section, which will generate results from Twitter, from Blogger, from Google+, and eventually from LinkedIn, Quora, and Foursquare. So it'll be your friends from Facebook and then anybody who might know that you're not necessarily friends with. And then eventually the last thing they'll roll out is something called Activity, which will show other queries and questions people have been asking.
The no thing is throwing me off a little bit. I like the idea. You know, search knows, Bing knows, and then when you get into friends know, and you get into something like, okay, if you're in Seattle and you're searching for a restaurant, a friend might have already been to this restaurant, so they might know if it's good or not. That's almost simplifying the information that they might have to give me about this restaurant.
This is Search Plus Your World.
Yes.
For Google, except for Bing.
Right.
But I think it's done a lot more elegantly.
I guess the naming of
Forget the naming convention,
categories is throwing me off a little bit. As far as it being an all-in-one search plus a lot of friend information, gathering functionality. It's great.
John, what do you think? Is this enough to make you try out Bing, give it a whirl?
Well, I mean, I'm always willing to try it out. I'm definitely a creature of habit, and almost everything I have is in the Google ecosystem, so it's always difficult to get me out of that. However, I will say, if there's a really compelling search tool here, then I would be more than happy to use it. I mean, I do research all the time. That's my main job. So if it's something that's going to make that research more meaningful, then I'll quickly adopt it. I have a fear about social search because I'm kind of a know-it-all. And I'm worried that people are going to be searching for stuff and they'll see my name pop up. And then every time I log into Facebook, I'm going to have 50 messages from people. Hey, that restaurant you checked into last week, was that any good? Hey, how do you get to that theater that you're always going to? Hey, I saw that this theater reviewer said your performance in that last play was terrible. How does that make you feel?
Well, no, hold on. Let me ask you, if you're providing all this information at the beginning, isn't it under the assumption that people will ask you because you're such a wealth of information? Isn't that the whole idea of sharing it in the first place?
Except that sharing is coming from me out to the audience, not from the audience coming to me.
You don't think you'll take advantage of that the other direction?
Maybe once in a while. I worry about it a little bit. I mean, it also depends on how you use Facebook, right? It depends on whether or not you befriend everybody, whether you know them or not, because I have friends who do that. I don't do that. But if I were one of those kind of people, I'd probably be a little more concerned about getting messages from folks I don't really know, but I befriended them on Facebook because I'm just a serial befriender.
Mm-hmm. You know, this is something, obviously Bing is a lot more than just I'm in an unfamiliar city, what do I do? But that is extremely helpful. Right now I'm trying to plan a vacation, so I end up on TripAdvisor all the time because it's always at the top of my Google search results. But TripAdvisor has this nice thing now where if I'm logged in through Facebook, I can see which of my friends have actually maybe stayed at this particular motel or given their own reviews of certain stuff. And that carries more weight to me than just everyone on the internet, here's the average rating out of 10 of a bunch of strangers. So the social search, Jonathan, I totally get what you're talking about where it gets a little bit almost burdensome. But I like that it probably has more to do with the kind of person I am and what I'm looking for than just a straight up search.
I definitely get that. I guess I kind of also fear the bazillion tech support questions I am going to get. Every time anyone searches anything tech related and my name pops up because I've written an article about it.
Maybe someone else's name will pop up as well.
I sure hope that it'll, maybe if it's alphabetical, because Strickland falls far enough down the alphabet where maybe I won't be the first choice. Well, also, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just wondering how many of my searches would really benefit for this. I mean, I guess if it turns out that this works really, really well for things like restaurants and buying speakers and planning a trip and those kinds of things that you've been doing.
That's the only three things I care about, Tom.
I know that. That's the things you've been talking about lately. I could see Bing being very helpful in that case for these. But, I'm looking at my actual search history and it's, laser music, facts over the internet, June 10th Spirit rover launch. Those are things where I needed to find facts, particular information.
Yes.
And this integration doesn't really help
But
me
we also put together a news show every day. So, I mean, I search for all sorts of weird stuff where Google Plus Search Your World results will pop up. And it's like, I'm just looking to see when that Evo 4G LTE number 3, whatever it's called, is coming out at AT&T. So I don't really care about what my friends have been saying. I'm just looking for certain information. So I think we might use search a little bit differently than the average bear.
And also, the Bing Knows section, actually, that does interest me. So once that's up and running, I would like to see how that gets integrated into search so that when you're searching for certain stuff, it's kind of like the way Google works now in a way. If you search for certain things, the first result isn't necessarily a link to send you someplace. It might just be the information you actually needed, like the weather, something like that.
That seems to be more of an interface tweak, because Bing already does give you things like maps and reviews and price comparisons. They just give them to you in the main section. So they're breaking it out and making it easier to see that kind of information separate from just, page links, which will be in their own column.
Right.
Let's move on to Google and Mozilla ganging up on Microsoft over Windows RT. Windows RT.
Poor little Microsoft.
Oh, poor old Microsoft. Windows RT is the ARM version of Windows 8 that will be coming out this fall. So Windows 8 runs on Intel processors, but the new thing is that they're having a version that will run on ARM-based processors. WOA. Windows RT gives Internet Explorer access to APIs that other browsers cannot use. Now, the other thing about Windows RT is that it has a classic mode that looks like your classic Windows desktop, and only Internet Explorer can even run in classic mode. So if you want to use Windows on an ARM machine and use the desktop, you only got one browser choice. Even in Metro mode, Internet Explorer can access some rich APIs that other programs can't. So Harvey Anderson, Mozilla's general counsel, said this is an unwelcome return to the digital dark ages. Google put out a statement saying, we share the concerns Mozilla has raised regarding the Windows 8 environment restricting user choice and innovation. But remember, Windows RT is meant pretty much for tablets. And if you look at the most successful tablet in the world, it really only has one browser too, and that browser has access to APIs that other browsers, other alternate browsers
We're talking
don't
about
have.
Apple and Safari.
Safari on the iPad.
Well, you can download other browsers that look a little different than Safari, but they're pretty much just Safari
Reskinned.
different skins, on the engine.
And also, don't forget that Microsoft aims to have Windows RT, on servers and laptops eventually. They would like to have desktop ARM for servers that run Windows RT, and that means, no Firefox in classic mode anyway. You'd have to use it in Metro mode. Does this bother you, John?
Yeah, it actually bothers me a lot. But there are a lot of different issues going on here. One of which is that I think a lot of us still haven't really looked at tablets as being the next real thing. It's almost like a tablet it's all right for that to have its own kind of boxed in, compartmentalized approach because it's not a computer, except that we're all entering this post-PC era. That's what we keep talking about. And in that era, these are real platforms. And if we keep that compartmentalized, then legitimately good products that should be able to work on them just are not going to be able to. I mean, Mozilla put it very well. They said, we can't make a browser that can compete with an Internet Explorer if we don't have access to these APIs. The best browser we can make is never going to be good enough because it just doesn't have access to that kind of power.
The only difference between this and Apple, though, is Apple doesn't have a history of antitrust lawsuits over browser bundling. They've never had to, have the European Union force them to give you a browser choice screen when you launch Windows. So Apple can kind of do this and say, nobody's accusing us of an issue like that. And people just think of the iPad differently. It's not OS X. It's not a laptop. There's no OS X desktop mode. So Microsoft's kind of straddling the line here and saying, well, we're going to give you the classic mode that kind of looks like the Windows desktop, I think is working against them. If it was just a tablet operating system that said, we're only going to have one browser in there, and in fact, it'd be smart of them to not even call it Internet Explorer, just say it's the Windows RT browser, there would be fewer people complaining. But Microsoft is trying to say, well, look, Windows RT on ARM is just as good as Windows. It's just running on ARM. And they're trying to get the enterprise to buy into this and use these tablets. And at the same time, they're not providing the same kind of program compatibility. Intel's Paul Otellini today was slamming them at an investor conference about the fact that they don't have legacy support for software because all software was built for Intel, and Intel software for Windows won't run on Windows RT. So this is another strike against people adopting Windows RT tablets.
Maybe. I think that's a strike against enterprises adopting Windows RT tablets. I'm not sure it's as big a deal for a consumer as it is for a company. I think Mozilla's stronger suit against Microsoft, as opposed to the whole Intel ARM issue, is that Microsoft actually had. Do you remember the Windows principles that were published back in, I think, 2006?
Oh yeah, that rings a bell.
So Windows Principles, that was a list of rules that Microsoft was going to pursue that would allow everyone to play on essentially an equal ground on Windows-based machines. And then they're gone now. They're not. If you go to the corporate citizen page on Microsoft's webpage,
That
document's
let me Bing that. See if I can find it.
Why don't you do that? There is a PDF version of it that is live on the web now because I think Mozilla made it available. And so you can actually read what those principles are, and they do very much spell out we're going to make this a fair, level playing ground for everybody. So we're just going to obey these rules, and it has nothing to do with the antitrust issue. This is going to extend far beyond this antitrust litigation that we're going through because, of course, these were drafted several years ago, and now they are mysteriously missing, or maybe not mysteriously.
The transcript of remarks made by Brad Smith in 2006 are still up in a press release. That's the best I can find.
The press release is there, but the document that actually has
the actual document is not.
The principles and the tenets are gone.
You know, I do think that Microsoft is not being evil or malicious here. I think what they're trying to do is create a tablet operating system that can compete with the iPad, and they just can't resist the temptation to include a little more because they're Windows and they want to have that desktop. I think it'd almost be smarter to say, you know what, Windows on ARM is different than Windows 8. And they're already calling it Windows RT. They're calling it something different. Just get rid of that mode. Just say, you know what, that doesn't exist.
I think there are a lot of people who get the difference and appreciate both and will say, well, it's very annoying now that I can't be running my Firefox browser. But they're the ones who understand how the system works enough to be annoyed. The other people who are new to the experience just won't get it. I don't think that they're expecting to be able to switch back and forth, and they're certainly not going to understand why this other browser that looks the right way, the one that they've always used, is no longer available.
Or, alternately, they could go the Android route and say, we will allow alternate browsers on our tablets because Ice Cream Sandwich, you can run Opera, you can run Firefox.
Well, maybe they'll be forced to.
Yeah. One way or the other. It's
weird because, we have to get to the point where do we say that tablets are a type of computer, as in like just a branch off the desktop, or do we say tablets are definitely their own thing, that mobile is its own space, and therefore we should not necessarily apply the same rules and the same regulations that we had for the desktop world to the mobile world? And Apple has been striking out with mobile is different, and it's they're doing really well with that. And it's just, like you said, Tom, it's because Microsoft has this history of litigation that has brought this into question in the first place, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of funny when you look at it to realize, hey, Apple has a dominant position in the tablet market that is at least similar to Windows' dominant position in the desktop market, at least in 2000, and they have a single browser. Why aren't we seeing an antitrust case against them for bundling? They're bundling way more stuff than Windows ever did. And my preference is the Android approach, where you say, look, we've got an open marketplace, but I see that there are good arguments on the other side about compatibility and simplicity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to say that Apple and Microsoft shouldn't be allowed or should be regulated or sued for it. But I think the better choice is to allow competition, because then your device in the long run becomes more compatible or more compelling, I should say. Let's go on to Facebook, which we mentioned yesterday is starting an app center. We got some more details on that. Plus, they're getting into file sharing.
Yeah, so this is Facebook's App Center, but it's not so much an app store as it is a showcase for apps that you can get other places, like the Apple App Store or Google Play. So the idea is it's a showcase for all apps that are built around pre-existing app stores. The reason that they would be featured in Facebook's App Center is because they have Facebook login built in. So Facebook says, hey, let's showcase all the apps that use us to log in so we can promote these apps. For example, if I find Instapaper, right, in the Facebook login or in the Facebook App Center store, and I say, this seems like an app that I would want, it will then cart me over to either the iOS or the Google Play version of the App Store where I download the app natively. They don't get a cut of this. This is not some deal that they've made with Apple or Google or anything like that.
Yeah, they should.
Well, they should, but they don't really need to because they're just promoting the use of Facebook to log into apps, which helps Facebook collect data on people that are using these apps. So they win in that sense. Apps, again, like I said, they have to use Facebook login to even get into the App Center. And imagine all of the eyeballs that are on this App Center, something that's featured on the App Center's homepage. You got 90 million users on Facebook, so that's certainly a good incentive for developers to include Facebook logins in their app if they haven't done so yet. Again, Facebook can collect a lot of information on their users. Targeted advertising gets smarter because of this sort of thing. And it's interesting because within iOS, especially the newest version of iOS 5, is deeply integrated with Twitter. So iOS is always giving you an incentive to send to Twitter and use Twitter and this sort of thing. So this is Facebook's
response to that.
Well, it's I don't want to say devious because it's not really devious. It's very out in the open, but it's a strategic
move
way to maybe lessen the load on Twitter integration and more with Facebook. Free web apps that force Facebook to log in. So a third-party web app for example, Spotify. So Spotify, if you want an account with Spotify, it's like you have to use Facebook to log in. So something like that is perfect for the Facebook App Store because that's what you need anyway. So this is something that would get a huge promotion. So if you're an app developer and you're sort of thinking about the strategy, you would want to partner up with Facebook potentially if you want to get a lot of people using your service right out of the gate. Also, something else that's kind of different, HTML5 apps. So it's not necessarily proprietary app stores. It's not just the iOS App Store. It's not just Google Play. It's anything that can be built as an HTML5 app, including paid apps. Has not been so with anything Facebook app related. Facebook allowed in-app purchasing, but the app originally had to be free. So they didn't allow developers to say, okay, here's my app in the Facebook App Center, and I'm going to charge $5 for it. Facebook will take 30% of the fee for sales, which is somewhat of a standard.
Yeah, typical.
Yes. Facebook gets developers to build HTML5 apps instead of proprietary app stores. Obviously, a huge incentive for Facebook.
And the Financial Times just recently dropped their iOS app to go totally HTML5. So this is another of those inching moves towards that sort of thing.
Exactly. So the deal is that they're currently offering the paid app experience to developers in a beta test to a small group. Up to now, again, in-app payments were the only way that developers could make money off of the Facebook ecosystem. So it's giving them just another reason to develop for showcasing in the App Center. So I read this and I think, okay, well, obviously Facebook would love for developers to just make HTML5 apps, and then Facebook can get a cut of these apps and they can just sort of control the social app experience, and I won't be going to places like the iOS App Store anymore. I don't think that's tomorrow, but I can see that changing course over the next couple of years pretty quickly.
And iOS can't do anything about it.
No.
If it ended up that way, and I'm like you, I'm not certain that it's going to end up that way. But, Apple, when they first put out the iPhone, their assertion was you can make apps in HTML on the web, and we don't need to run an app store. And then they decided to make an app store, and then they made it so it almost encourages you as a developer to want to go to the web because you get more freedom. You don't have to share any revenue with Apple. You don't have to do in-app subscriptions. And that's why the Financial Times went that way.
I think one of the big benefits that Apple has enjoyed, because, I mean, they make a lot of money off of developers, is that they have the biggest app store and developers are sort of forced to develop for iOS 5. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have built wonderful iOS apps who think deep inside their hearts, I hate Apple, I wish I didn't have to do this, but that's just where the people are.
Yeah.
That's where the downloads are. And with something like Facebook and Facebook's many, many, many millions of people who...
There's 900 million people there, too.
Potentially are interested in your apps, all of a sudden you really change the focus. And I'm not leaving Google out of this. Google's absolutely a big player in this as well. But Facebook creates trends. Facebook helps to push the behavior of many of us, especially social stuff. So I can see this potentially being a big change for our behavior.
Also, group file sharing out today. Facebook rolled out file sharing for groups. It'll trickle out slowly over the next coming days. If you don't see it on your group, any file up to 25 megabytes That's the same file limit as Gmail. You can't put music files there, which that's just silly. You can't put executable files there, which I kind of more understand that because that could lead to malware. But ebooks, comics, music, even small videos are fair game.
Music videos.
Music videos, right. Not music. I guess not MP3s. You could,
so like links to YouTube videos are cool, but they figure if you're sharing MP3s, then...
I don't know. That's weird.
Well, I think it's just because they don't want to be responsible for making sure that music came from a legitimate place. So just...
Well, what about everything else? What about the ebooks that you're storing up there? I mean, everything could be piracy. What about just changing the extension so that it doesn't say .mp3 and it's actually a music file? It's just silly. What that is a salve to the music industry to get them to allow you to not come after you for this. Because file sharing, they've made file sharing into a dirty word. Mm-hmm. And what Facebook wants you to do is collaborate.
All they've really managed to do is push back when those industries are going to come after Facebook. I mean, it's as soon as people start using this and they start using it in ways that go beyond the quote-unquote intended ways that Facebook has unveiled, this is just going to be a huge can of worms.
Yeah.
I mean, with 800 million users, 900 million users, it can't be.
Don't store your worms up there either.
Right, no worms.
Let's take a quick break. Thank our sponsor, Squarespace.com, the easy-to-use UI for creating and managing a website or a blog. If you want something reliable, you want something secure, something you don't have to worry about, you want to start your site with Squarespace.com. Just go there right now, add in whatever you want the domain name to be, and you can conveniently start up a good-looking website. In fact, this is a great way to start up a website for somebody else. Maybe you got a friend in a small business, or it's just a small business you're a fan of, and you'd like them to actually have a really good website. This is a great place to get started. You don't have to be an HTML or a CSS expert. Standard plans start as low as $8 a month. If you are an expert in that kind of thing, you can get under the hood and tweak stuff really easily. And they've got a complete web font library from Google, over 300 fonts now fully integrated. All kinds of great resources to take advantage of. And traffic reports, detailed traffic reports, so you know who's actually coming to your site. Squarespace even offers free live webinar classes and 24/7, 7 days a week support. There's really no reason not to go to Squarespace and try it out because you don't need a credit card. It's absolutely free to try, and all you need to do is come up with the name of your site. You can use one of their modules to bring in your current blog and see what it looks like. It's going to look better. Check it out. If you decide to purchase it, use the offer code TNT5, and you get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. And don't forget about free Squarespace domain registration. If you sign up for an annual plan, pay for a year at once, you get a free domain name. That's squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT5, and we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Well, Harry Potter not only came to Hogwarts, now he's come to the Kindle.
Harry Potter?
Yeah.
The Kindle?
Well, you can borrow him anyway. Starting June 19th, all 7 Harry Potter books in 5 different languages will be added to the Kindle lending library. You can rent books out of that lending library, or if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can borrow the books for free, although you have to pay the $79 a year subscription to Amazon Prime. You can only check out 1 book at a time from the Amazon lending library. And if you want to own a digital copy of Harry Potter, you're going to have to go to Pottermore.com and buy it direct from J.K. Rowling. Smart woman. But this is a way to get Harry Potter on the Kindle now.
Well, hold on. So
you could buy it and put it on the Kindle yourself.
If you're not an Amazon Prime member, how much does it cost to rent?
I don't know.
To borrow the book?
That's a really good question. I may be wrong about that. You may not be able to get it at all if you're not a Prime member. I'm not sure how that lending library works.
Well,
yeah,
go ahead, John.
From my understanding, it was only the Prime members who would be able to access the lending library. This is, like you said, this is a really smart move on Rowling's part. I mean, it's a great move in the sense that I think more people need to pay attention that you can't, if you just kowtow to Amazon, and I love Amazon, but if you keep doing that, they become not only the dominant but almost the only avenue for e-publishing. And to do this Pottermore experiment, it's great because you can actually buy a DRM-free version of the Harry Potter books and put it on whatever device you want. You're not
share it with all
limited
your Facebook groups.
What? It does put a watermark on your book so that it actually has your name on it.
Oh, your book's wet.
Yeah. So that way, an electronic watermark.
Oh, thank you.
I guess
Okay,
it should
good.
be
So
more
it's-
specific.
So it sounds like it's just for Amazon Prime members. So obviously Amazon.
I was
and
wrong
Pottermore,
about the lending library. You have to be an Amazon Prime member.
and they're going to give Pottermore a certain amount of, I guess, the.
Well, J.K. Rowling gets anybody who puts a book in the lending library gets paid per lend.
So yeah, it's almost like a music subscription service type of a thing. So it's not as if this is going to money goes into Pottermore's hands either way. I guess that
It goes into Rowling's hands.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm just
Or her bank
she's
account,
probably got an
actually. Probably goes
assistant
into her
who's getting a
financial
little
manager.
something. Yeah, exactly. An accountant, tax guy. But there's something about, and believe me, I love ebooks. I love the Kindle. I love everything about being able to get Harry Potter, in an ebook way. However, when I have an option, and I am a Prime member, so I understand that if you're not, this is going to be a little bit different. If I have the option to rent a book, get through it, get the next one, get through that, I don't want to collect books digitally the way I want to collect actual books that I put in a bookshelf, where you get like a little bit of those bragging rights, or, oh, I got it on vinyl, like, look at this book, this cool book. It doesn't mean the same thing to me because it's just a file. So I don't feel like there's as much of incentive for me to get a book from Pottermore and spend a little bit more. That's just the mentality I have with ebooks more than ever, is that I find them, they're rentable. I'm not necessarily going to go back or look at them again.
Well, and one of the big problems with the Kindle lending library is not all the books you want are there. So you're going to have to mix it up. Sometimes you can borrow, sometimes you can't. But this is a huge get for the Kindle lending library to say, look, for your $79 a year, you got all 7 Harry Potter books, which I believe are around $10 a piece. So you've almost paid for your Amazon Prime membership right there. Forget all the streaming video and free shipping and whatever else they throw in.
Yeah.
Just if you read all 7 books. Now, the thing is, probably the people who are going to buy the ebooks of this are not reading them for the first time. They probably want to have them and access them anytime and look at multiple versions. They're the super fans.
I just feel like the super fans have got like the hardcover
And
books.
buy the hardcovers.
I guess so.
Right,
I guess
but
you want it all.
Let's say that I'm going on a trip to Europe and I want to be able to read a lot of books with me. I don't want to pack books 3 and 4 of Harry Potter because I only have one suitcase that I'm taking with me. I can't have a suitcase dedicated to the hardcover books of the Potterverse. So having the electronic files in that case, I mean, I'm
you
very
won't do
big
the
fan of
lending
series.
library because you can only check out one at a time because you're on a long enough trip. You want 3 and 4, so you'll buy them.
Right. Yeah. And plus, if I were to check them out in Italy, they'd all be in Italian.
Well, I think it's a good excuse to learn Italian.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you want to learn Italian? When did you start hating Italian?
Hey, scusi.
Strickland, it's an Italian name. All right, let's move on to T-Mobile losing some subscribers, but that's good news, and I'll explain why. Deutsche Telekom, owner of T-Mobile USA, released their earnings. T-Mobile USA is a subsidiary, and so we get specific earnings about T-Mobile USA. Now, they lost 510,000 subs in Q1. Those are subscribers who have the contracts. Those are the more valuable subscribers, granted. But that's an 11% improvement from last year. And overall, T-Mobile added 187,000 customers overall. The way they added the customers was by gaining 249,000 prepaid customers, so that's customers not on a contract, and adding 449,000 wholesale customers. That's where they just kind of sell off the business or sell off the service in chunks to other people who operate it. So
they came out ahead.
They came out ahead. Now, it's not the more valuable subscribers, but when you put that next to a Fizzorg report that I saw today that says in Q1, the 7 largest U.S. phone companies, representing more than 95% of the market, lost a combined 52,000 subscribers from contract-based plans, and no contract plans grew 2 million. It looks, if these numbers from Fizzorg are right, the people are saying, you know what, I'm done with contracts. I'm just going to buy a phone and go prepaid. And in that case, T-Mobile may be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's the initial reports I read all looked like they were essentially giving the message of T-Mobile's in some really serious trouble, which may very well be true, but I don't think you can draw that conclusion based solely upon the information that was in those particular articles, because they were saying, look, T-Mobile's in trouble because people are leaving the subscription. They're going to this whole prepaid mode, and that's why T-Mobile's in trouble. Well, actually, that's why everyone is in trouble in the sense of their old business models are starting to look a little creaky because everyone is experiencing this, not just T-Mobile.
I think people are tired of contracts.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, having the freedom, especially when you're getting to a point. Look, I'm an Android phone owner. If I enter into a 2-year contract buying an Android, I know that 3 months later I'm going to have another phone come out that's going to be twice as good as the phone that I have, and then I immediately have buyer's remorse. And then I know that I've got another year and 9 months before I can even look at another phone without having to.
Oh, you froze up there for a second. But I'm with you. It's nice to not have to think like, oh wait, when can I get a new phone? What's my contract details? The other part of this earnings report, earnings for T-Mobile were up 7.2%. Even though revenue fell 2.5%, they made more money. They didn't bring in as much money, but they had more profit. Part of that was layoffs. Part of that is some money they got from AT&T for not being bought. That wasn't much of it, though. It was mostly higher average revenue per user. So they're getting more money out of people. They're getting more prepaid subscriptions. I wouldn't count T-Mobile out of this. You asked me this 3 or 4 months ago, I would have said, yeah, they're going to go pushing up the daisies.
Well, because they couldn't compete with the bigger companies. Once they weren't going to be bundled in with AT&T, it's like T-Mobile is too far behind to be the next Verizon, to overtake AT&T. But spinning off in another direction, saying, "Wait, there's a big group of customers who are actually looking for something different. We can offer them that. Let's see where this takes it." Seems to have paid off. I mean, at least when we're looking at these numbers.
Or Carly putting on the leather jacket. I guess that was Q2 though.
Is that another reference?
That's the girl, the T-Mobile girl.
Oh gosh, her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, they're really edgy now.
We'll see how that affects the earnings in Q2.
Yeah, I don't know which one bothers me more. Poor Carly. She's just
there. She is in her polka dots.
See, that's old
that's
Carly.
The old Carly.
Before she met the guy who got kicked out of school and
threw away the pink.
Took her to his
pink dresses.
Sleek store.
She's a rebel.
Yeah.
With a cause of rolling out LTE before it's too late.
Who doesn't want to be in a contract.
T-Mobile.
No chains.
T-Mobile
man.
is going to roll out LTE. By the way, they've hired Sony and I want to say this, not Sony. They've hired Ericsson and Nokia Siemens to help build out their network. So some people still think that's too little, too late, but we'll see. Finally, Silk. Not the browser for Amazon Kindle Fire.
Not the shocker.
But the Semantic Web project at silkapp.com came out of private beta today. This is a very interesting project. It allows you to link a series of pages together with tags. That probably means nothing to you. It's from a Dutch team working with seed funding from Nicholas Zenstrom. He's one of the guys behind Skype originally. He has a seed funding outfit called Atomico. And right now what it is it kind of is a combination of Wikipedia and Wolfram Alpha. Let's say you go in and you create pages the way you would create wiki pages, right?
Okay.
And then if we can get go ahead and put the volume up, Chad.
For instance, everything on prime ministers can be found on Wikipedia, but you'll need to go through every page or hope that someone else has already done the work for you. Now let me show you Silk. Silk is a web-based tool that allows you to view, mix, filter, and visualize information. Silk will enable you to answer questions, find trends, and explore data while saving you time. Here, we have the same information again in Silk, but now we can look at all the information as a whole, select specific countries and persons, bring them together, filter on specific properties, and visualize the result.
So for what he's explaining is if I've got a Silk site set up with all of my data in it, let's say the data is all of the facts and figures around the prime ministers of England, and I want to see very quickly what was the economy like under the different prime ministers over the past 20 years, I can do a couple clicks and make that happen instead of sitting there and going to each Wikipedia page and saying, okay, there's that number, put that in a spreadsheet, take that number, put it in a spreadsheet. The current version only works on pages that are hosted on Silk's servers, and to use data in Silk, you have to first import it. So to me, that's the big disadvantage is it's not easy to get the data in. So if you're doing this for a one-off,
right,
you might as well just do it the old-fashioned way. But if it's the kind of thing where you're like, this is a data set that I'm going to be mining over and over and over again and taking a lot of different perspectives on, then it seems like it's pretty useful.
That's just one of the disadvantages, really. I think the big one from anyone who's building such a site, you have to build ontologies and taxonomies. This is all classification. It's the metadata, the information about data, and you have to provide this. So you're tagging all this data so that it's meaningful to Silk, and that's always been the big barrier to the semantic web, because it's this idea that computers on their own do not natively understand what data is and how it relates to other data. It doesn't have that context, so you have to create the context so that the system can pull this data in ways that are meaningful to you. That front loads so much work on your end that to build this out just is going to take a monumental effort, even for relatively simple databases. And if you're talking about something as wide as Wikipedia, for example, I can't imagine how long it would take to tag all the information that you would think could potentially be useful further down the line, so that you let it know that this data means this. And on top of that, two different people could have two different ideas of how to tag the very same information. I mean, Tom and I, we could both be going in to create a Silk page the same way, about the same topics, tag it totally differently, and have it come out. A query may not pull up the same information using Tom's method as it would mine.
Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that Silk is meant to be used within an organization. So if John and I are working in the same organization, that's something we have to take into account and agree that this is how we're going to tag this information. If it's that John at his company is doing it one way and I'm at a company doing it another, that isn't as much of a problem the way Silk is built up. But you're absolutely right, John. All of this data entry is the big problem. What Silk has done, which I think is very valuable, is provided a nice pivot tool to say, look, if you can make a wiki from scratch, make it in Silk, and then you'll have a much better way to access and slice up the data on the other end. But if you've already got data, that's a lot of work to go back and tag it and enter it into Silk and do all that stuff. Now, Sandra Kropelar, who is the head of the team, said that automatic tags on common words, instant gratification when something is being tagged, are things that they're working on for future releases, and they're also going to try to bring in data through APIs and other widgets. If they can crack that side of it, so that you connect the dots and say, not only are we making it easy to interpret the data that's there, but also making it easy to bring the data in, then you got something. Of course, then that tagging standardization comes in.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of questions of, gosh, how this is going to be so much work. At the beginning, how does it build out? Think of something like Wikipedia. It's so big, it took so much time. But I mean, Wikipedia had to start somewhere too. So it sounds like they have a few details to iron out as far as how to populate a lot of subjects. But I love the idea of something that is woven. I even like the name Silk because it kind of makes sense to me. It's just woven more intricately than a lot of our informational tools online that we have now and we use, but aren't perfect and could be better. It's nice to see something like this.
A good example, if you're having a hard time wrapping your head around this, is go to world.silkapp.com. They've got the countries of the world, and you can see how they are able to use the tool to come up with water use in Africa. Just based on, they didn't create this from scratch. The tool created this. And you can go in and you can zoom around. You can see different countries, male versus female life expectancy, line charts of water area all of this done on the fly. So you can get a whole lot more data that it would take you weeks to create at the snap of a button. It's just, as we've mentioned, all of that front-loaded work that has to be done.
I find it really interesting, too, that in this one news show, we've had a major story about optimizing the social network for search and to create the semantic approach to search, which is the artificially intelligent approach to search. And it's interesting, we're seeing development on both fronts simultaneously. And I'm curious to see which version, I hesitate to use the word wins out, but which one becomes more prevalent for everyday use in the future.
I'm looking forward to this too, and I've created an account at silkapp.com. I'm thinking of doing like Song of Ice and Fire Silk thing that I can share with people.
Go for it.
Just, I feel like starting something from scratch is the way to go. I don't have time to do that, though. Maybe get people to collaborate.
Tom, what's the iron price for silk?
You have to go to the Netherlands and slay one of the team members. I don't think that's a good idea, though.
Okay.
You can get it for free. There's no reason to pay
Not really
the
an
iron price.
incentive
Yeah.
to start developing on silk.
Let's move on to the news fuse. Facebook has yet to close its billion-dollar deal for Instagram, and now it may take an extra 6 months to a year to happen. Financial Times reports two people familiar with the matter say the U.S. Federal Trade Commission has launched an investigation of the deal and is currently collecting information from Facebook's competitors. Now, it's normal for the FTC to investigate large-sum deals like this, so it might not mean anything, but it could possibly delay the integration of Instagram into Facebook until after the IPO.
The following is not a joke. Hold on to your hats. Dish users who have the Dish Hopper DVRs can now automatically skip every commercial break with a single touch, thanks to their newly launched Auto Hop feature. Here's the too good to be true part. The feature works with most shows recorded using Primetime Anywhere. That feature automatically records primetime shows from major networks. So it's not everything that you're watching, but it is some things, which is better than no things, unless you like commercials.
Apple has taken the brunt of criticism for working conditions at Foxconn, and now they're going to pay. Literally. Foxconn chief Terry Gou said today Apple will share the initial costs of improving labor conditions at the Chinese factories that assemble iPhones and iPads. No word on how much of the tab Apple will pick up.
Things just got a lot simpler at the Google Oracle trial. Hooray! Judge William Alsup ruled this morning that the jury shouldn't spend time on the amount of statutory damages, since the maximum Oracle can get is $150,000. Instead, Judge Alsup will decide the amount himself. Google took this as a sign and decided to file a motion today requesting that damages for any determined patent infringement go to the judge as well.
Judge, if you're just going to do that, why don't you do it for everything? If you've been slobbering over the GeForce GTX 680 graphics card but don't have the money, I've got good news for you. NVIDIA announced the GeForce GTX 670, which will only run you $399. Now, if you can live without 192 of the CUDA cores and a loss of 10% of the base and boost operating speeds, this is the one for you.
If you're the kind of person who's like, I know you, but I forget, face to the name, I can't remember, you are that, I met
co-host of TNT.
Yeah, well, Face.com's Click app can start helping you recognize people as long as you're friends with them on Facebook. You hold up your phone to take a picture, and Click will use pictures of your Facebook friends to hover a first name over that person's head. This is my dream. If the app gets it wrong, it will suggest alternate choices for you, which helps it improve accuracy, but also makes you look like a total loser. That first time where you're like, John. No, you're not John. I'm sorry.
Is this also going to work for my Facebook friends who insist on using pictures of their children for their profile photos?
Probably.
Or will I just
not?
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Thank you, Sarah. GameStop here in the U.S. has its own online store called Impulse for buying digital copies of games. Might not be doing so well, though. According to Kotaku, GameStop will start selling Steam vouchers for Valve's online video game service starting May 15th.
The European Parliament voted today to cap the cost of roaming charges starting July 1st. The new caps reduce the cost for phone calls and SMS messages for Europeans traveling outside their home network's country, but within Europe. Mobile data will be capped at 70 Euro cents per megabyte, and will fall in stages to 0.45 euros. See what I did there?
Nice.
In 2013 to reach a maximum of 0.2 euros per megabyte in 2014. The Council of Ministers must approve when they meet in June, but have indicated that they would.
Let's check the randomizer. Real quick one today. Google engineer Sebastian Thrun has posted a hands-free photo taken with Project Glass. Now, you could do this with a regular camera, but it'd be a little more difficult than if you just have the glasses on, because he's holding his kid with both hands and swinging the kid around, most likely in punishment for some grievous error.
It was right before the arms dislocated. Such a bad scene.
Does the kid look like he's having fun?
Yeah, kids love this.
Okay.
This is a fun game.
I can't tell.
Kids love it.
Kid's about to pay the iron price for what he did.
Yeah.
You stole my joke.
I'm sorry. You set him up. I'll knock him down. Let's check the calendar.
Okay. We're done with that Google picture, are we? Congratulations to VLC. The media player hit 1 billion downloads. And that's not even counting Linux downloads, which most often come through the distros. So you're flying high, VLC, man. High five.
Way to go.
Hitman Absolution has gotten a release date, and it's going to be November.
Yeah.
Or release month, anyway.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of empathy for the Hitman character. He and I share the same hairstyle.
Yeah.
You and Lev Grossman, too.
Onkyo Music is going to offer high-definition downloads starting May 30th, in Japan anyway. Gadget Live, you know our friends at Gadget.com. They have these live events around the U.S., and they're doing another show in Chicago tomorrow night. Those are always a lot of fun. So if you're in the neighborhood, they're usually all ages. And finally, Mary Jo Foley reports that starting June 2nd, Microsoft will begin its upgrade program for folks buying new PCs. So consumers buying a Windows 7 PC running Home Basic or higher will be able to get Windows 8 Pro once Windows 8 is available. The caveat is that it won't be free. It'll be a small fee.
Incoming message.
Incoming message.
See, that's what I said. We got a couple of voicemails to listen to today about self-driving things. First one is from someone who has experience with tractors.
Greetings, TNT crew. I just wanted to comment. Every time that you talk about the Google self-driving car, it always makes me think of that agricultural world where we have self-steering tractors. Typically, they're used for spraying chemicals on fields, but you also have them doing row crop, and those machines need to be at sub-inch accuracy. Just kind of an interesting thing to toss out there and kind of get your geek going. Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah, those are GPS guided. I'm fairly certain. I know just enough about these tractors to be dangerous and get stuff wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're GPS guided. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit of a different challenge because you're saying you've got a field that's predefined this big and you need to cover it in this manner. So I've had it explained to me as being similar to what a Roomba does when it figures out how to vacuum a room. But it is a lot bigger than a Roomba. It's a big old tractor, you know? So that's an interesting parallel there. And then our second caller says that they're actually using this sort of technology already in the military.
Responding to the blind individual looking for the self-driving car, that technology is currently in place to autonomously convoy troops from one engagement to another. And that way they can do, with situational awareness, they can do rehearsal on their way from one engagement to another. And since digital technology is transferring to the commercial world at an accelerating pace, it won't be long now before a car will be available to blind and otherwise handicapped individuals.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't realize it was being used that extensively.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think go ahead, John.
I was just going to say that the DARPA has been funding self-driving car contests for like a decade. So if you go back and you look, I actually wrote some articles about
Stanley.
This. Yeah, you look at some of the various colleges that have competed in building out these self-driving cars. They go through this whole obstacle course, and the first obstacle course was an enclosed one. The second one was more like a cityscape. So the military's been working on this sort of technology for quite some time. So yeah, I mean it's been around. It's just that Google was one to bring it into quote unquote the normal everyday real world as far as we Americans are concerned anyway.
Cool. All right. Real quickly, I want to mention Mike in the UK and a couple other people wrote in and said as far as using issued Wi-Fi access points from your ISP as a way to share Wi-Fi amongst people. Apparently BT's been doing this with the BT phone system, where anybody who has BT service can surf the web off of any BT Wi-Fi access point anywhere. So that's kind of cool. Thanks, Mike, for letting us know about that. And thank you, John Strickland, for joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time. Let folks know about all the good stuff going on and how stuff works.
Sure. Well, howstuffworks.com is our home. That's where we write all the great articles, like how the Large Hadron Collider works. That was one of mine. That was easy
stuff.
fluff piece.
Yeah,
Fluff piece.
Totally.
And nothing like some liquid helium to brighten up your day. So yeah, that's where all the articles live. Plus, I've got the Tech Stuff podcast, which is my baby. I love it, and you should definitely go and check that out. Take a listen if you like, and lots of other stuff. Keep your eyes on the site because we've got some pretty cool things in the pipeline.
I expect lots of crossovers with Techzilla soon.
I sure hope that'll happen. It'll all depend on whether or not Veronica will let me on the show because, she's given me the look of death at least 4 times.
She just does that a lot. It's kind of a default look for her sometimes.
I mean, she likes you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good thing.
All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. You can find us on our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. That's the place to go to let us know what stories you'd like us to talk about every day, technewstoday.reddit.com. You can also email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call. Leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We stream live every day around 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern at twit.tv/TNT. We'll see you tomorrow with Shannon Morse from Hack 5.